What up, y'all? It is a Real Ball Watcher back with another video. Make sure you grab the binoculars because I got another breakdown. Emeka Egbuka, know what it is. Let's get into it. But first, soon there will be a Patreon dropping. It's going to be around $3 for the lowest tier. And I'll make maybe 2 more tiers just if you're feeling generous to donate anything. But most of the SEC players and guys that played against the SEC for most of their film is going to go up there. I might put some of the Senior Bowl interviews that I do this coming week at the Senior Bowl up on there also. So be ready for that Patreon. But whatever. Like, comment, subscribe if you like the videos, like the content. Subscribe so you can see it every single week, multiple times a week. Now let's get into it. Emeka Egbuka. So, really good receiver. Ohio State, he's 6'1", 205 pounds, probably around 6 foot, 22 years old. He spent 4 years at Ohio State. Last year, I want to make it known, last year I was a lot lower on him because I felt like once CJ Stroud left, he had such a down year with worse quarterback play and not as many stars around him, taking attention away. Turns out it wasn't the case. He went through the same thing Isaiah Bond went through this year, which we'll get into that at a later date. He had a really bad ankle injury that he suffered in the beginning of the year, played through it throughout the year, also missed some games. Turned out he needed to have tightrope surgery on his ankle when the season was over. Come back this year, he looks really good, almost like he did the year before. We'll get into that later. But let's talk about his strengths now. So, first strength that I gotta talk about easily is his route running. I think he has, Ohio State they just breed route runners. You look at Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, JSN, Marvin Harrison Jr. They're just really great fundamental route runners that use short area quickness. Really good. Emeka Egbuka and JSN, really great footwork. Also Garrett Wilson, really great all of them, to be honest. But really great footwork to get guys off balance. He plays into the leverage of a lot of corners a lot. So he's kind of getting them shifting one way, getting on their toes, and quickly shifting back into the window to get open. He uses a lot of different rocker steps, a lot of different hop steps, a lot of different square movements to get guys off balance, to get guys squared up and then break off for in routes, out routes, crossers, things like that. And he's done it against really good players. I have tape for him against Mikey Sarenstill. Y'all know I loved him last year against Mikey Sarenstill in the slot. I got tape against him or against Xavier Watts last year. Really good player though, just to say the least. Against Georgia, where they had Kamari Lassiter, Malachi Starks, all those guys. What's the dude that got drafted to Tampa Bay? Can't think of his name off the top of my head. But really good tape against really good corners because his footwork and his route running is so good. Another thing that he is really good at is tempoing his routes. Maybe coming off in a slower stance or kind of jogging, speeding up, and then slowing it down when he needs to break down if he needs to. Running at different tempos kind of throws corners off and their timing off to when they want to break on routes, when they think you're going to break. So really good tempo, really good working against the leverage of DBs, getting on their toes, getting out of things like that, getting in blind spots. Really good footwork overall. I mean, when he breaks down, he looks pretty smooth getting in and out of his breaks, coming back towards the ball, threatening guys with speed, and then slowing down, coming back. Overall, just a really good route runner. What you see from Ohio State receivers, like the examples I said, they're going to be great at route running. That's just how they coach them up there. Simple as that. Next, I think he has really great hands. You see him make one-handed catches a lot. See him catch outside of his frame a couple of times. I got a couple clips of him doing that. But overall, what I like to see the most is those tough catches that he makes that I have all over his tape, where it's not even outside his frame. He's not extended, but it's right in his chest. But there's a defender draped all over him. There's a defender kind of when you're throwing it, when the defender's eyes aren't to you and you're just throwing it to the back of his head so you guys can go get it on a back shoulder or something like that. He does that a lot in the red zone. And even when he's coming across the middle of the field and he's able to he's getting hit, he's getting held, he's able to still hold on to the ball. That's what you like to see, a great route runner with great hands. Sure, quintessential slot receiver. I mean, you got to have pretty good hands to be a reliable target for your quarterback. I mean, we've seen it with, making it about the Panthers, we've seen it with Adam Thielen. The reason he's one of our best receivers because he has the most reliable hands. Simple. He might not have the most juice. He may not have the most yak ability anymore or anything like that, but just being a really good route runner, really nuanced, seasoned route runner, and also having great hands has made Adam Thielen our best receiver. So those two things, those two qualities, let you know that there's going to be a very high floor for Emeka Egbuka at the next level, regardless. Simple as that. So yeah, really great hands, really good in tough catch scenarios, all of that stuff. Next thing I want to talk about is his yak. I think he has pretty good yak. He's not like a Debo Samuel-esque yak guy. He's not going to be this guy where you're most of his catches are from screens. Well, he does take a lot of screens at Ohio State, but most of his catches are going to be screens, drags, in and around, things like that, because you just want to get him yak. But he is good coming across the middle, can get you maybe an extra 5-10 yards, or even more if he has a hole to go. Very similar to a certain guy that I have in his shades of, and his yak will get there. But you see it a lot in just good short area quickness to make guys miss, to get different angles on defenders, beat guys at different angles. He's a very compact guy also. He's able to kind of take a hit. He can kind of run through an arm tackle if he needs to. He can bump into a guy, bounce back, and, keep moving when he needs to do so. That short area quickness, that compactness of him, of his body type, makes a pretty decent yak threat. I'm not going to say great yak threat. I won't even say pretty good. If I had to give him a grade, it would be like a B-. But that's pretty good. That's the best yak threat on the Panthers, to make it about us again. So yeah, really good yak threat, or good yak threat, I should say. Last thing I want to talk about, he is a 3-level threat. There will be questions about his speed. I don't want to see him run the 40, things like that. But we've seen guys like JSN, who didn't have the fastest 40, still be able to win deep because of their route running and hands, things like that at the next level. And he's shown that on his tape. He's able to beat guys up the seam. He's not necessarily a vertical threat, outside X, Z receiver, up the numbers, just running a go or a post. That's not necessarily him. But up the seam, on crossing routes, things like that, on posts from the middle of the field, big, deep digs, things like that, he's able to get open. But with the quickness in his route running, he's also able to get open 24/7 in the short and underneath. Plus that yak is going to make him a little bit of a threat there to move the chains. And of course, any nuanced route runner with good hands is going to be good in the intermediate, because that's where you get your digs, that's where you get your comebacks, that's where you get your crossers, like I said, even though you can run deep crossers also. So a 3-level threat, he's going to be a guy that you can consistently target over the field regardless of who you're playing. And he's going to have a really expansive route tree because of his route running, because of how good he is. Just enough speed, great acceleration, I feel like. Great acceleration to win deep, things like that. So that's all I got for the strengths for Emeka Egbuka. It's nothing crazy long list or anything like that, because he's just like every other Ohio State receiver, just in a different form and package, body-wise, type-wise, different intangibles. But great route runner, great hands, good yak threat, 3-level threat, good pro-ready receiver. Very pro-ready receiver. But let's get into stuff that's not necessarily his game. So, first thing I want to talk about when you're talking about stuff that's not necessarily his game, the first 2 points kind of blend in with each other. The first thing is he's mostly going to be a slot receiver at the next level. When I say mostly, think of how Adam Thielen, Cooper Kupp, Amon-Ra St. Brown somewhat, how those guys are used, Tyler Lockett, where they mostly play from the slot, but you can motion them out to Z. You can have them on their own side using motion to get them free releases, things like that, or just line them up at Z sometimes to give them a free release versus a certain guy. He'll be able to do that, but he is mostly a slot guy. That's where he's going to be his best. And the reason because of that is, from what I've seen, going into the next point, he has struggled with contact against stronger DBs or against middle linebackers who's able to get their hands on him and also run with him at the same time. He's knocked out of his routes. It knocks him off his timing. He's been pushed on the ground, frankly, by guys like Cooper DeJean, I want to say it was, at Iowa that year. It might not have been him. It might have been Riley Leonard. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, he's going to struggle with contact if they're able to run their feet at the same time. Now, if they're stagnant and they contact him, he can run through that. But most corners on the outside, especially your number one corners, your J.C. Horns, Patrick Surtains, guys like that, they're going to be able to put their hands on you, make contact, and still run with you. So he struggles with that, which makes him mostly a slide guy. Next thing now I kind of wanted to mention is he's going to have questions about his top end speed, just like JSN had coming out, just like Amon-Ra St. Brown did have coming out. It doesn't look like he's a burner or anything. He's never just leaving guys like 5 yards in the dust or things like that. And also after the ankle injury, which we'll get into later, he's not going to be this 4.3 guy. You're looking for high 4.4s. That'll be a good number for him. Anything below high 4.4s is a surprise and immediately shoots him up draft boards. But high 4.4s, low 4.5s, that's what you're looking at, and you're hoping he can get there. You're hoping that he's not in the high 5.5s, 4.5s, mid 4.5s or 4.6s. You're hoping he's not there, but I think he's still good enough to compensate for those things. Next thing I want to talk about, he lost a little bit of juice, it seemed like, after the ankle injury and his surgery. I threw out last year's tape, 2023 tape, because when I watched it, I'm like, this dude just doesn't look good. And then once I learned about the ankle injury, how severe it was, I was like, you know what? I'm going to throw that tape out. Only going to watch 2021, 2022, and then this year. Going off of 2021 and 2022, he never had super top end speed back then either, but he looked more agile. He looked like he had better acceleration, a little bit better short area quickness, even though all of that stuff is still pretty good now. It just looked like he may have lost a step. So is it one of those things where it's like, they say after an ACL injury, it's going to take you 2 years to come back to be your full self? Is it that type of thing? If that's the case, great. He's going to be much better than what you're projecting him at now. But I do notice that he has a little bit of, taking a half step back and a little less juice to his acceleration, agility, and things like that. But last part, he's simply never been the number one receiver in an offense. He's always been the number 2, number 3. He's still produced. He's had 2 1,000-yard years. But will you be able to craft and build an offense around him solely as your number one guy, as your go-to guy? He hasn't shown the ability to do it in college, but then again, Ohio State is just a wide receiver factory, so what can you do? I don't think Garrett Wilson was the number one receiver back then either. I think it was Olave or JSN, somebody like that. So, I don't know. We'll see at the next level, but that's all I got for the weaknesses and stuff like that. Let's get into his player build and the shades of things like that. Now, when it comes to I almost said shades of. When it comes to Emeka Egbuka's player build, I simply have a crafty slotsman. Pro-ready, crafty slot receiver. Some people can say he's a power slot. I can see that also because of the compactness of him. But he's going to be a guy that plays mostly from the slot. He's going to win with just crafty route running, great hands, fundamental guys, something like that. And then still be able to provide you some yak after that, things like that. So, pretty easy player build. You know what it means. We know what it is with these Ohio State receivers. We all watched JSN 2 years ago come out. Whatever. For the first shades of, to me, everybody's going to have this. I've been seeing it all over Twitter. Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's what I was kind of likening his yak to. I think he's kind of sort of... They used him the same way also at Ohio State. That same Amon-Ra role, the way that the Lions used him. So I could see that winning over the middle with digs, crossers, posts, slants, things like that, drags. Still using them on jet sweeps and shovel passes. Stuff like that, outs. I could see him being an Amon-Ra St. Brown type of guy, getting you 500 to 600 yards of yak. Maybe 1,100 yards, somewhere around there. I can see that. So, pretty good to me. I think he has better hands than Amon-Ra. Maybe. We'll have to see. But something along those lines. Remember, these aren't comps. These are just shades of. I can see parts of their games in them. Next one I want to say, I like this a lot. Chris Godwin. I can see him being in that Chris Godwin role. Primarily a slot receiver. Sometimes flex out to Z. Really good route runner, really good reliable hands. Chris Godwin isn't a super crazy yak threat, so if his yak isn't able to translate, I can see him still winning at the same level that Chris Godwin does with his route running in his hands, things like that, and also still being able to flex and play outside, even whether it's a motion or not. I can see him playing Z on, maybe 30% of his snaps in the NFL without, having to take away from much of his game. But last one I have is Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore is getting the brunt of the bad stick because of his because he's had such bad quarterback play throughout his whole career. But I can see him being a 500, 600 yard slot receiver who can provide you some yak. Not necessarily is going to be the focal point of your offense. Amon-Ra is like the top of the top because he's a number one receiver in his offense. He's a focal point of that passing game. Then you're going to have Chris Godwin, where if you have a number one beside him, he's still going to be able to make you almost feel like a 1B receiver, a great number 2 receiver, one of the best number 2s in the league. And then Elijah Moore is your floor. It's kind of, hey, he's going to be a good 500 to 700 yard receiver, good yak, some explosive plays here and there, good, reliable pair of hands, not necessarily Elijah Moore, but somewhere in that production range. But that's all I got for y'all, Emeka Egbuka. It's not much to say. I mean, Ohio State, we know what they do. They just pump out good, pro-ready receivers, crafty route running, great hand receivers. It's really that simple. So, Emeka Egbuka's a good player. I think maybe late first round, second round, I could see him going. I would take him somewhere in the second round because I don't know if he can be a number one guy, but then never know. Maybe he's JSN. So, we'll have to see. But I like them. So if you like the video, like, comment, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff. Get ready for the Patreon is dropping. You already know what the vibes is. See y'all next week when I come with the Senior Bowl content. I'm out.